Like a squirrel who spends its summer dodging cars, climbing trees, and just sitting in the middle of the street, all in hopes of finding acorns to bury in the dirt and eat later, I've been doing squirrel stuff myself. Well, minus the cars, the trees, the streets, and replacing the acorns with news stories. I've been collecting topics that I have an opinion on to showcase here on another edition of Quickfire News. I've got 4 stories for you today regarding the first MLS manager fired this season, how MLS won a championship over the Manchester United, a look into what the new Leagues Cup will be this year, and some more topics. So sit back, relax, and let's get talking. First, I want to talk about what this season's Leagues Cup is going to look like. This competition was introduced in 2019, but that version played 3 years ago is a completely different concept than what we're going to know the Leagues Cup as now. In 2019 and 2021, the Leagues Cup was basically 4 teams from Liga MX and 4 teams from MLS competing in a bracket-style tournament for a trophy. It was all just part of the process of trying to bring Mexican and American soccer closer together. It would allow the 2 countries to play meaningful games against each other and also bring in some good cash money. Looking back at it all now, it was just testing the waters of a possible interleague competition, which will be starting in 2023. Now that competition will be a massive change to what the Leagues Cup has been and its future. From 2023 and onwards, there will be a month-long period in the MLS and Liga MX season where they will pause the league. During this pause, the Leagues Cup will begin, which will be a massive World Cup style tournament that will involve every single MLS club and every single Liga MX club. Now that competition in of itself deserves its own separate video, but I'm sure that'll come when it nears closer to the summer of 2023. For now though, MLS and Liga MX have announced what we will be seeing this summer, and they're calling it the Leagues Cup Showcase. From my understanding, this showcase will replace the 8-team Leagues Cup format that we saw in 2019 and 2021, and this year we will just be seeing 2 interleague matchups to show everyone what this tournament will look like come 2023, when all 47 clubs from both leagues are competing with each other. The showcase is going to be played at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles and will feature 2 games on August 3rd, one of which is the LA Galaxy versus Chivas Guadalajara, and the other one is LAFC versus Club America. Now, I guess at first glance, it's a cool matchup. I mean, Liga MX versus MLS is always fun to watch, but this is basically just a friendly game. Yeah, there's some cool narratives like Chicharito playing against his boyhood club and Carlos Vela coming up against arguably the biggest team in Mexico, but again, it's really just a friendly match. I think it could be more exciting if there was some type of small tournament or something, but yeah, I don't really have any other ideas on how to fill this void of a year before the actual Leagues Cup competition will start. So just add in this Leagues Cup showcase to the list of games that will be occurring in these teams' schedules. Next up is the headliner, the big story from this past weekend. It's the San Jose Earthquakes deciding to part ways with head coach Matias Almeyda. If you've been following this team over the course of this year, and even the last few years, you know this was kind of bound to happen. Over on the left shin guard, a weekly live show previewing every MLS game, I've repeatedly talked about how poor the San Jose Earthquakes have looked and their incompetence of their former head coach Almeyda. I even had San Jose finishing in last place in my season preview, which wasn't an unforeseen take at all, but it shows that, this was coming. Now, when San Jose brought in Almeyda from Chivas, it seemed like the perfect acquisition. In 2019, the year before he arrived in the States, he lifted the CONCACAF Champions League, proving his level of coaching, and although he came into an Earthquakes team that was struggling, he could never really fix them. Over the past 3 seasons, Almeyda has brought in a ton of his former players, attempting to recreate his success in Mexico, but failing to ever do so. His best finish in MLS came in 2020, when he led the Earthquakes into the playoffs, but fell in a hard-fought match to Sporting Kansas City. Since then, it's been crumbling down on Almeyda, and partly because of his own doing. He felt like he wasn't being backed by his front office, and publicly stated his displeasure during foreign interviews during the preseason. He straight up said multiple times that he was just waiting for his contract to run out and that in 10 more months, I'll be free. But even though the Earthquakes' front office may not have spending as much money as Almeida would have wanted, they still catered to the guys that he did want, and his system really just sucked. Coming into the 2021 season, Almeida had 7 players on his roster formerly coached by him at previous clubs. Players that he knew would help him achieve his desired tactics. But it didn't work. Almeida loves playing a very high energy football, aggressive pressing, forward passing, and man marking. You heard that right? Man marking. This tactic that he would not get away from even after it failed him miserably almost every game. Now, if you haven't ever watched the Quakes play, you may not understand how strict this team was on their man marking. They would leave the whole middle of the field open just so they could be on their man. San Jose playing defense was basically non-existent. We've already seen that killing themselves in multiple instances in just the first 7 games this season, and even after being exploited multiple times, Almeida never changed his ways, remaining stubborn, and now the Quakes are sitting with 3 points after 7 games, conceding 17 goals in that process. Now, why did it take so long for the front office to get rid of Almeida? Well, we've mentioned their unwillingness to spend a lot of money, and I think that's the exact reason why Almeida stayed longer than he should have. He only had 1 year left on his contract. So when given the option to just keep him till his contract runs out, or pay the money it would cost to terminate the contract, it seemed like San Jose was just alright with playing the waiting game. It was clear that Almeida wanted out himself, but he was just going to ride out this final year. Over the final weeks of his stay in San Jose, he stopped attending league-required press conferences, and many fans felt like he checked out months ago. Luckily for them though, he's finally gone, and now the next era of this team can begin. San Jose Earthquakes 2 manager Alex Covello will take over as interim manager, and he will be assisted by former Earthquakes assistant coach Steve Ralston, Earthquakes 2 assistant coach Luciano Fusco, and former player Chris Wondolowski. The good thing for this team is that they have players that can compete in this league. In my opinion, they just need the correct tactics to get them to play to their actual potential. Jackson Ewell should not be playing in the middle of the back 3 like Almeida had him. Jeremy Ebobisse already has 5 goals this year, and he's a young prospect. Also, Cade Cowell could be used more efficiently. They've also brought in some MLS experience over the offseason with former Philadelphia Union DP Jamero Montero and former Minnesota United midfielder Jan Gregus. I think with a more traditional style, we'll start to see some more points on the board for the Earthquakes, and I really do think letting go of Almeida is going to be really good for this club in the future. The third story I'm sharing today could be proof that MLS is officially better than any European counterparts. Now, obviously, I'm trying to stir the pot saying stuff like that, but the reason I'm saying that is because of what we saw over the past week at the Generation Adidas Cup in Frisco, Texas. The Generation Adidas Cup is a youth tournament that was founded in 2007. This cup gives MLS academies a platform to play against some of the best clubs from around the country. This year's edition consisted of 2 brackets with the U15 and U17 tournament. Along with every MLS team represented, this year's edition featured the academy of footballing giant Manchester United, as well as Roma, Valencia, Porto, River Plate, Pumas, Tigres, Monterrey, Club Leon, Tijuana, Club America, Celtic, and Flamengo. After the group stages and the knockout stage, 2 MLS teams emerged victorious from both the U15 bracket and the U17 bracket, featuring all of those clubs. Winning the U15 tournament was the Portland Timbers, who emerged from a group with Atlanta, Porto, and Philadelphia. And then they took out the Manchester United in the round of 16, the New York Red Bulls, LAFC, and then beat Valencia in the final 1-0. In the U17 bracket, the Seattle Sounders finished second in a group with Charlotte, Austin, and Santos Laguna, and then took out the Union in the round of 16 and wrapped up their championship run with victories over Monterrey, Miami, and Tigres in the final. Now, I know that this tournament doesn't solidify that youth development in this country is better than over in Europe, but it does show that the MLS Academy system currently in place is competing with some of the best academies in the world. We've already seen some stars emerge from MLS academies like Gio Reyna, Weston McKennie, Brendan Aronson, and Ricardo Pepi, and we are continuing to see players get their chance with MLS first teams because of this academy system. As I've mentioned in previous videos, the USA is host to a lot of talent. We just need to figure out the best ways to give the talent in this country the opportunity to perform. Generation Adidas Cup, along with MLS Academies, MLS Next, and MLS Next Pro are all just pieces of the puzzle in creating a pipeline of American talent. And finally, sticking with the youth of America, or I guess also the youth of Poland, I want to talk about 17-year-old Chicago Fire's starting goalkeeper, Gaga Slonina. Now, the potential of Gaga Slonina is no secret. He's been pinpointed as the next big player coming out of MLS and has even been recognized by Next Generation Football as one of the top 50 wonder kids alongside players like Jude Bellingham, Harvey Elliott, Xavi Simons, Florian Wirtz, and Barcelona's Gavi. This season, Slonina has been given the starting job for the Chicago Fire, where he's racked up 5 clean sheets in 7 games and only conceded 2 goals in that as well. Not only that though, but Slonina is also currently holding down an 88% save percentage. Now, he's already been contacted by clubs like Chelsea and Juventus, but nothing's actually been agreed upon between these clubs. The Fire did just announce that he has signed a new deal until 2023, but the reason for that is just to make sure Chicago is able to get a nice payday for developing the youngster. Going back to the main point of this story though, Gaga Slonina is a dual national. He's eligible to play for the United States, a country he has represented since the U15 level, but he's also eligible to play for the Polish national team. Before the other night, it seemed like Poland was still waiting to get in touch with Gaga. But then images emerged of Poland's head coach meeting Slonina at Chicago's US Open Cup game to give him a Polish national team jersey. It's reported that Slonina will receive a call-up for Poland soon, but there's no word on if he's going to accept that or deny it, according to Tom Boger on Twitter. Poland's manager did state that they are very interested in Slonina joining their squad and that he believes things are moving in the right direction. But what does this mean for the US men's national team? For me, to be honest, the goalkeeper position is a big question mark. Zach Steffen supposedly holds down the position, but with him playing backup at Manchester City, his lack of game time has shown during World Cup qualification, and more notably, his mistake in the FA Cup semi-final against Liverpool. The US also has Matt Turner, but he's going to be joining Arsenal as a backup keeper in the summer, so the same issues with Steffen apply to him as well. The other possible name is Ethan Horvath, who's fighting for promotion to the Premier League with Nottingham Forest, but he also hasn't been able to lock down the starting spot either for his team. All of this makes me think Gaga Slonina has real potential to become the #1 keeper for the USMNT. If he chooses Poland, I think it could be a real miss, especially with him only being 17 years old. He could be the United States top keeper for the next decade. It's a tough situation, and I'd hate to see Gaga go to Poland, and I think you should really keep an eye on where this story goes. And that's all of the topics I got for today. As I was finalizing this video, news came out that DC United sacked head coach Hernan Losada, so the manager firing floodgates have officially opened. Please let me know your thoughts on the stories I covered today down in the comments, and I hope to see you next time.